growth, and wisdom. In a small village by the river lived Daro, a young potter with hands that moved faster than the spinning wheel. He was driven by a burning ambition to create more than anyone else, dreaming of fame that would come very quickly. His workshop was always filled with unfinished works, as he believed that quantity was the only path to true success. In the quiet corner sat his father, a master potter who spent days working on just a single piece of art. The old master watched his son with concern, knowing that the clay has a spirit that cannot be rushed by force. Daro often laughed at the slow pace, convinced that he could outpace time itself to reach his goals before the festival. Though his father would gently warn him that the clay only listens to time, and rushing will only lead to certain ruin. But the young man ignored the wisdom, pointing proudly to his hundreds of pots as proof of his superior working method. The great village festival was approaching rapidly, and Daro set a goal to finish 100 pots before the opening day. He worked through the long nights, sacrificing sleep and rest, believing that his sheer effort would compensate for the lack of care. The shapes were slightly uneven and the surfaces rough, but he did not care as long as the count was high. He stoked the fire hotter than usual, hoping to force the clay to harden faster than nature intended it to be. From the shadows, the old master watched the black smoke rise, his heart heavy with the knowledge of the impending disaster. Days passed in a blur of anticipation, and finally the moment came for Daro to open the kiln and see his work. With a heart full of hope and pride, he pulled open the heavy stone door, ready to welcome his glorious victory. But as the light hit the shelves, his smile vanished instantly, replaced by a look of utter shock and deep disbelief. Inside lay a graveyard of broken dreams, where every single pot was cracked, shattered, or warped beyond any recognition. He held a sharp shard in his trembling hand, realizing that his haste had destroyed everything he had worked for. His father stood silently beside him, offering no words of criticism, for the broken clay spoke louder than any lecture. Overwhelmed by shame, the young potter fell to his knees, surrounded by the ruins of his own impatience and ego. The festival arrived with joy and color, but Daro's stall remained empty, a silent testament to his painful failure. He sat alone by the flowing river, watching the water move at its own pace, neither rushing nor stopping for anyone. In the silence of his defeat, the words of his father finally began to echo clearly in his troubled mind. He remembered how his father treated the clay not as a material to be conquered, but as a living partner. Returning to the workshop, Daro did not touch the wheel, but stood quietly, watching his father work with new eyes. He noticed how the old man spent hours just kneading the clay, ensuring every bubble of air was completely removed. He saw his father pause to feel the moisture, listening to the silent language of the earth beneath his fingers. Humbly, Daro asked to learn again from the beginning, and his father smiled, handing him a small, raw lump. Daro sat down, but instead of spinning the wheel, he simply held the clay, learning to feel its weight and texture. For days, he did nothing but prepare the earth, learning that the foundation must be perfect before the building begins. He filtered out the impurities with patience, understanding that purity in the material leads to strength in the final form. When he finally touched the wheel, his movements were slow and deliberate, guiding the clay rather than forcing it. The form rose gracefully from the wheel, balanced and smooth, reflecting the new peace that was growing inside his heart. Instead of 100, he made only 3, pouring his entire soul and attention into perfecting every single curve. He painted delicate patterns of lotuses and waves, his brush moving with the rhythm of a calm and focused mind. Watching from the doorway, the father nodded in approval, seeing that the boy had finally become a true artisan. He waited patiently for the drying process, protecting his work from the harsh sun and the strong winds of nature. He found joy in the waiting, watching a butterfly land on the rim, realizing that beauty requires time to bloom. When the time came to fire the kiln, yet he placed his few treasures inside with gentle care and proper spacing. He fed the fire slowly, respecting the process, allowing the heat to build up gradually to strengthen the clay. Through the long night, he sat awake, sipping tea calmly, trusting that he had done everything within his power. Morning light bathed the workshop as the kiln cooled down, and Daro approached the door with a quiet, steady heart. As the door opened, 3 magnificent vases stood tall, their glaze shimmering with the deep, rich colors of the river. He brought one into the sunlight, tapping it gently to hear the clear, bell-like ring of perfectly fired ceramic. His father held the work, tracing the flawless surface, his eyes filled with tears of pride for his son's growth. The next harvest festival arrived with great fanfare, and the village square was filled with laughter, music, and celebration. Daro's booth was simple and uncluttered, displaying only his 3 masterpieces, standing alone in their quiet and elegant beauty. Crowds that rushed past other stalls stopped in their tracks, captivated by the mesmerizing depth and quality of his work. A wealthy merchant picked up a vase, marveling at its perfection, declaring it the finest craftsmanship he had ever seen. Daro bowed humbly to the praise, his heart filled not with vanity, but with a deep sense of gratitude. From the bustling crowd, the father watched his son, knowing that Daro had crafted something far greater than a pot. The 3 vases were sold for a fortune, cherished by their new owners as rare treasures of art and spirit. As the sun set over the festivities, Daro and his father walked home together along the peaceful, winding riverbank. They walked in a comfortable silence, their long shadows stretching out on the path, connected by a new bond. Daro turned to the old master and whispered that he finally understood the secret that the clay had taught him. He learned that true mastery is not a race against time, but a harmony with the natural rhythm of life. Daro found a peace within himself that was far more valuable than any gold or fame he had once desired. His hands, once rushed and greedy, were now patient instruments of creation, respecting every material they touched with care. His works now sit in homes across the land, bringing beauty and serenity to all who take time to look. Years later, Daro became a teacher, guiding the hands of children and passing on the wisdom of the patient earth. When a child cried over a mistake, he would smile gently and teach them that failure is just a lesson. His workshop became a sanctuary of peace, where time seemed to slow down, and art was born from the soul. Like the river that flows beside his home, Daro learned that the strongest forces are often the most gentle ones. He created thousands of pieces in his lifetime, yet he never rushed a single one ever again in his career. He honored his father's legacy not just with his success, but with the quiet patience he carried in his heart. This story reminds us that in a world obsessed with speed, patience is a superpower that we must cultivate. Like a seed that needs time to become a mighty tree, our dreams require time and care to truly flourish. Do not be afraid of going slowly. Be afraid only of standing still or rushing towards a destination without a soul. Trust the process of your life, embrace the waiting, and put your heart into the details that others might ignore. For in the end, what remains is not how fast you finished, but the quality and love within your work. The village by the river continues its timeless rhythm, holding the memory of the potter who learned to listen to time. May you find the courage to slow down, to breathe, and to create your own masterpiece with patience and grace. Patience is not merely waiting, but the ability to keep a good attitude while working hard towards your true dreams. Thank you for watching the Life Tales. Subscribe for more inspiring stories that touch the heart and awaken the soul.